Holy God, open our eyes to your presence, open our ears to your call, open our hearts to your love. Amen. Please be seated. I feel a certain affinity with George, our patron saint. Not because his banner, the red cross on a white field, is represented in the Episcopal flag, which it is, or because he is also the patron saint of England, where we were expatriates for 3 years, which we were. And it's not even because he is a legendary slayer of dragons, which he might have been. It's actually because we don't really know that he wasn't that I am drawn to him. The truth is, we know precious little about St. George. And I love that. I love that that is precisely the reason he is remembered. I mean, his name is on a list of, quote, good men justly remembered, whose good deeds are known only to God. We don't know what he did, but we know that it mattered. It's a beautiful reminder that our actions do not need to be epic to make a difference in the world. They just have to be done in love for love's sake. So when the problems of this world feel overwhelming and evil seems unstoppable, I turn to George for companionship and courage to do the right thing, even if it is only known to God. In some circles, well, very small circles, yeah, okay, probably more like a dot. In some dots, I am known as J-Rev Demon Slayer. I know, go ahead and laugh, it's hilarious. Especially as you get to know me. It was an unintentional thing, the result of not having time to change clothes between work and our son's band concert. In the car on the way, I asked him if my looking like a priest was going to be embarrassing for him. And he said, no, it's the opposite, Mom. I already told all of my friends that you slay demons for a living. After that, Reverend Gene got shortened to J-Rev, and suddenly I had an altar spelled A-L-T-A-A-R, an alter ego, and the legend of J-Rev, the Demon Slayer, was born. Neighborhood kids would come running into the house with cups of water, asking me to turn it into holy water so that they could fight vampires. True story, which I found really delightful, and I never did. Never did make it holy water. Anyway, J-Rev has also attended many diocesan youth events. And a few years ago, as a fabulous gift from my former senior warden, J-Rev became embodied as a bobblehead. And I'll put pictures of her in the comments of this Facebook stream after the service. She's adorable, and I've had a lot of fun with her. But I never really gave J-Rev as much thought as my son and the other youth did. Just like I never really considered the power of the legend surrounding St. George. That is to say, I didn't consider the very real, transformative possibilities of being a mythical slayer of demons. That is until last year. last year when we were all asked to be more than what we thought we could be. Last year, just before Lent, a diocesan young adult and close family friend who had grown up with the demon-slaying lore sketched J-Rev as part of an artistic entrepreneurial promotion she was doing. She's very talented. I was surprised and honored that she had done so, but mostly I felt empowered by how she saw me, by what my own strength could look like. In her post, she had said that she was tempted to draw J-Rev slaying a demon, and I knew immediately what that demon would look like. It would be the two-headed beast of white supremacy and misogyny. These demons, like George's dragon, are evils that appear untouchable because they are systemic. But they can be slain, not in epic battle, but by small acts of courage. By breaking the silence, ending the isolation, and changing the narrative. This is how author David Corton describes how to make cultural shifts in his book, The Great Turning. He was talking about environmental issues, but it applies to all systemic changes. Break the silence about what is going on. End the isolation by standing in solidarity with one another. And together, tell a new story of love. 3 things. It's simple, but it is not easy. As our patron saint knows, every act of courage comes at a cost. The legend of St. George slaying the dragon is a work of fiction. It was written centuries after his death. And at its core, it is more of a story about freeing up public access to clean water than it is about saving a damsel in distress. And I say that in confidence based on the one for sure thing that caught the attention of the faithful of St. George's Day. As a high-ranking Roman soldier, George wouldn't participate in religious persecution. His resignation broke the silence about the empire. He stood in solidarity with the persecuted and changed the narrative in that moment from one of oppression to one of love. And it mattered. I know that it mattered because we're still talking about it. But that is not to say it happened without a cost. The empire, the systems, almost always strike back. And George was martyred as a result. But even this story, this memory, has been co-opted and perverted to be used as a rallying cry in the Crusades of all things. The irony of a man martyred for refusing to participate in religious persecution becoming the symbol of an outright 200-year religious war would be really interesting if it weren't so horrible. So it's time to change that narrative as well and return to the source of George's deep convictions. It's time to return to Jesus. Jesus, of course, knew all about being misunderstood and misrepresented, both in his day and sadly in ours as well. We are witnessing the building tension of that lack of recognition of who Jesus is in today's reading from John's Gospel. Jesus is declaring his authority in being of the Father and using that authority to not just challenge the systems of oppression, but here in chapter 8, from the treasury of the temple, beginning with preventing the woman caught in adultery from getting stoned to death, here Jesus is literally putting the systems of oppression on trial and shutting them down one by one. Turning the tables, flipping the script, changing the narrative. And still people asked, "Who are you?" Most of them just didn't get it. And those who did understand what he was doing, well, they wanted him dead. As it says in Revelation, the devil knows that his time is short. There is nothing epic about the cross, dear faithful. It was the ultimate humiliation and occurred with horrifying frequency. Jesus was not the first nor the last to die on one. Jesus' death was just another act of state-sanctioned violence. And even his resurrection is consistent with what God does, predicted and proclaimed by Jesus himself. Therefore, quite ordinary. Ordinary for the Lord of life and light and love. But you know what's epic? That we're still talking about it. Discovering our strength in the unity of Christ and emboldened to take action in the community as the community of faith. And maybe those actions will only be known to God, and that's okay. Because what we do not only matters, it makes all the difference in the world to the world. Thanks be to God for that.